Hi, we're at IBC 2022 and we're sitting here with Yann Salmon from Sony. Hello, Yann.
Hello, Ido. How are you?
I'm fine. It's great meeting you, I think, for the first time here, but definitely not for the first time generally.
Indeed, yeah. Yann with me.
It's been like 4 years, yeah. And we have a lot of questions. Let's start with the new product that you introduced, I think, just recently before the show, the FR7 PTZ camera. It's an interesting product that I didn't have, I think, before, and it's, I think, very special on the market. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it and maybe also about the target audience for this type of product.
No, it's a super exciting product for us. All started with the trend today in the live production where you have a trend on the cinematic look that is coming stronger and stronger. And the reason is the sensors are being growing in size and the demand for better looks in the live production becoming bigger. So this product arrived perfectly in this market because bringing full frame on PTZ, interchangeable lens with a bokeh look become extremely interesting. So you were asking me about target group. So of course, any live production in the broadcast industry, but also live music, for example, because very interesting because you can't have cameraman running around on a stage, for example. So this kind of look that we will be able to bring through the FR7 will be bringing really new creative possibilities in this market equally. After potentially a little bit in cinematography as well, where position of camera are difficult, very small, areas where you can place such a camera and you can't have a camera operator. This is also one of the aspects, but I think it's more minor compared to the live production segments.
What about, for example, concerts where you have to put a camera somewhere on the stage, relatively close to?
No, exactly. Like you can imagine the typical thing, the drummer, and you have the camera just in front of the drummer that can go and capture amazing pictures with wide angle. Imagine a 16mm lens shooting that with all the light behind. It can be something really special, I think.
I think for sports, a lot of people have been asking, and one of the questions that we got was, what's the max length that you can put there? Because if you're shooting football or longs, like will you need the long telephoto lens?
Yeah.
What's the maximum telephoto lens that you can put out on the PT?
So to have the pan and tilt functionality, it would be the 70-200 G Master 2, and you can put the adapter, the 2-time converger, that will bring you 400mm basically. Other lenses are possible, bigger lens, but you will have to lock the pan and tilt, so then you lose the benefit. So
okay. So another thing that I wanted to ask you was basically about the general ecosystem that you're having here. You have well, not in Europe yet, but in the States you have the drone that you recently introduced, I think a couple of months ago. And then you have the PTZ camera, which are both not exactly cameras, but systems, I would say. But these are pretty high-end systems. What about something more for content creators? I would say maybe a PTZ with lesser functionality, with a battery built in that you can actually put a camera like A7S3 or something like that on it, and it will communicate with the PTZ and create some movement. Do you see any sort of particular market for such a product?
as we very often say, it's always a matter of demand and then the offer. So, for example, as I was mentioning a bit earlier about the trend on the cinematic look in the live production, that enables this kind of new product. And similarly to what you say, so thank you for the proposal, but at this stage it's difficult to say, is there a market really for creators? What kind of a level of pricing would it be? The reliability as well depends a lot on the setup, on the camera weight and that kind of thing. So as of now, thanks for the idea, but it's not in the near future, I think.
Fair enough. Let's move over to some more general questions, not just about the PTZ. Many of our viewers, including yourself as A1 users, have been wondering if you can say anything about the release of the next A1 firmware update. Maybe even if you can't give us a date. Would it happen, I don't know, this year or something like that?
No.
Okay, that's the way to
give it. And say to you is that we have launched a firmware not so long time ago, I think the 1.3 in June, with quite significant upgrades, with a 4K, 422 10 bits, if I remember.
The small files.
The smaller files, raw, small, medium, large, and also some performance updates and so on. So we, if you remember Alpha 9, I think we are on version 6 now. So we're always looking into updates.
So it's going to happen sometime.
So don't worry, in the sense that Alpha 1 is our flagship. We won't let it, we will be behind this camera, of course. Any major change in the firmware means almost a new camera, and you need to go through all the quality control from zero, basically. So a firmware change is something important. It's not like there is a new feature, let's put it in. It doesn't work like that. It's hundreds of engineers working on firmware update. So it will necessarily happen at some stage. I think there will probably be an update quite soon, but more on the bug, functionality improvement rather than new features. And let's see for a 2.0 with more features, let's see how it goes.
Okay, fair. Thank you. Talking about firmware, by the way, Justin, I think, announced re-released the firmware for the A7 IV.
Yeah, correct.
Now it's supposed to...
Yeah, the firmware had a little bit, some small risk happened on the previous first launch, and that ties in very well with what I was saying before. It's not so simple. So it was took out by security, and we put a second update now that is available.
Could download it.
Yeah.
And you need to update, I think, to...
Yeah.
If you have to 0.5.
Yeah, exactly. I think there is 2 steps, yeah.
Now, this is an interesting question. The A7 IV, I think, the A7R4, Mark A, the second version, and also the A7 III, the A7R3A, basically the 2R version of the latest one. Also, they both got the more high-resolution monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as I know, this is the only 2 cameras in your lineup that has this LCD. Is there a reason for that?
As of now, yes, I think you're right. After, let's see what comes out later. But if we refer for Alpha 1, for example, I think that might be your question.
Yeah.
And Alpha 1, the priority was the viewfinder.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's, I think, fairly clear to say it's probably the best in the world. 9.4 megapixel and 200 frames per second in refresh rate. So the focus, for example, for this particular model was really to put the emphasis on the viewfinder, considering the target group that are sport photographer, news photographer, wildlife photographer. Of course, I know you're a videographer, and they're also videographer with 8K. But it's true that the emphasis was on the viewfinder rather than on the LCD screen.
Yeah, but in theory, I mean, and if you can say it, but the monitor itself is yours.
I wouldn't be able to answer you, to be honest, because I'm not the part supplier, but I would suppose so. But
yeah, okay. Is there a reason we are limited by how much we can zoom into the image when we are in video mode? This is a general question. Yeah. Because we are shooting this interview, for example, and if you want to see if you or me are in focus, we could, first of all, we can do this when we are actually shooting, and then if we're not shooting, just before it or afterwards, but before it, if we're trying to figure out if my eye is in focus, for example, you can only zoom in 1 time and not 2 times like you can in stills.
Yeah.
Is there a reason?
Yeah, the reason is linked to the video field, the output feed of the sensor. Okay. So while you're shooting stills, you're 8,000 times 6,000 pixels, something like that. And in video, the output is much smaller. So the zooming function on the video, on the image is based on this feed. And the zoom power you get is based on the resolution of the feed. So you will have a lower zooming range or zooming power on the video output feed that is a little lesser pixel in terms of resolution.
And there is no way to quickly tell the camera to move to stills. Grab the yellow thing.
I get what you're doing.
No, it's impossible.
Let me.
Okay. That's some interesting. Okay. The next question was basically about doing the same while recording, but I guess this is the same answer.
Yeah, it's similar. It's similar challenge indeed.
Yeah.
And the bigger challenge you have when you are recording is you have a feed for the feed that is being recorded. You have the one that goes on the viewfinder or the LCD screen, and at the same time you're processing autofocus, exposure, all comes from the sensor today. So if you add another functionality, you have a risk to disrupt other functionalities. So I think that's a matter of choice as well.
Let me ask you a different question. Is there a technical reason preventing us from adding from adding breathing compensation to all your current lenses, or including ones that don't have breathing compensation?
But basically, if there is a list,
Yeah,
it's because there were some limitation. It's not like Sony decided not to put them on.
no, honestly, there was a priority that you will start with these and
I don't think so. I think the main reason is probably the amount of precision that you need in terms of optical information, digital information is extremely important because as it's a live correction and when your frame is breathing, the precision of the information that comes to the camera will define how much crop you need.
Yeah.
And if the precision is not good enough, you need to crop more. And then you start to get out of our quality standards, and customer will say, yeah, see, not low cropping 20% of my picture to take off the breathing, that's not good enough. So I think it's a matter of balance between the cropping amount and the precision that you can get from the lens in the end. So I'm not 100% sure that we may be able to add some lenses, but I think it's challenging for this reason.
But is it true to say that at least you're trying for the future to design lenses that will be able to future lenses, hopefully?
Of course, yeah.
Going to that's important. Okay, let's move on. Another is it technically sort of a question: is it technically possible to add parafocal lens compensation like you've done for zoom lenses, like you've done for breathing compensation?
I think it's a very different situation. As I mentioned, for breathing compensation, you're basically reframing. So it's a matter of how much crop you make and the quality of the information you get from the lens to know how much you crop. That is not easy, but I mean, the picture is there and you just need to crop. While in a parafocal situation, it's a matter if the image is blurred, it's blurred, and you cannot compensate that digitally after. So the only way to get parafocal is to work on the lens itself, either by mechanical and optical solution, and of course information exchange. So that's why we do have very good parafocal properties of our current lens lineup, even though they are not mechanical, it's not contactless system, but we managed to have very good parafocal quality level and I would say linear focus ability of our lenses. And after that, you have cine lenses. We have 3 cinema lenses, 16-35, the 18-110, and the 28-130. And those 3 cinema lenses will be built from start with this parafocal in mind and quality. So very, very challenging and not possible to digitally do it. Sorry.
Okay. Let's discuss computational photography. That's a growing subject. I think, especially, you're seeing a lot of progress in high-end smartphones these days. Looking specifically at cameras, and if we're looking at the A1, for example, which again we use, and it has a very strong, very powerful processor. Now, I can do 30 frames per second at control shutter. The ability to combine in-camera fast bursts of shots with different settings. So, for example, if you can shoot in one shutter speed and then in different shutter speed and different aperture and different ISO, and combine the resulting image in camera. Is this something that you think that is this possible with the current camera, or is something that will only work possibly in the future?
So there are some features like pixel shift function, but a solution that is matching very well the high-end part of the market, so super hobbyist or professional that need this kind of functionality. On the other side, other technology more closer to smartphone, even though, as you mentioned, power of the processor beyond XR, double processor, is probably more than enough to do that. The question is more the technical. If you look at users of FR1 especially, or even if you take even the FX series and so on, these are high-end professionals, and the attachment to the purity of the image is very strong. So you would develop something that might be interesting more for maybe a more entry segment, where mobile phone is doing an extremely good job to take share from I would say product dedicated to photography. What Alpha One customer wouldn't probably use
it. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So let's talk about software a little bit. And in your imaging edge software, I think it's designed mostly for stills photographers. And basically, we are using it not just for stills, but we are actually using it for video as well, for capturing products, commercials, and other things. But we don't have a lot of video assist tools, and like zebras and vector show and other features. Do you think that this makes sense to actually add it? Is this a request that you actually got from other users?
It's a very good question. We know a customer in video market love their waveform and the color assist, and all these functionality are very popular. We know it. We know we don't have them. So we have that on a to-do list. Is the to-do list going to happen soon? I don't know. But we know it's a demand from market, definitely. So it's we have that, and thank you for the feedback and your readers' feedback, because it helps us to get more features from the band.
Fantastic. Last question for this interview. Sony has, for some time, I think, has really good Bluetooth wireless headphone. Not in your section of Sony, but for, I think, consumers mostly. What about the ability? And if we're talking about the A1 alone, the A1 has Bluetooth 5 built into it. Not all of you can have this, but the A1 does. And as far as I know, Bluetooth 5 has the capability for low latency transmission. So how about creating wireless headphones dedicated to monitoring with Bluetooth 5 that can work with A1 and maybe future cameras?
So the idea is not bad. There are a lot of entry or things to consider when you're developing new products, new ideas, and so on. So one of them you need to think about is the wireless headphone that could come from consumer side, as you said, on not monitoring headphones. We wouldn't mean a specific range of, I would say, pure monitoring headphones with the functionality of Bluetooth. So that means a new kind of niche market for those headphones. The second thing is to consider is the user's needs and how professional, especially in the videography segment, would be ready to actually use the Bluetooth. So we know that on all the high-end segments, these videographers will want to stick to their cables because they can't take the risk in a middle, very important interview to have something happening, battery goes out, interference happening. You never know, it can happen. If you look at, you will tell me probably, you have some wireless microphone, well, why do you rely on that? And the reality is that it's a different, we are using radio frequency that are, specific to our brand, and it's not a Bluetooth connection, even though you're right, the Bluetooth is becoming more secure. So we think there could be potential, especially in the new segment with our, small shoulder cam and so on. There could be needs when you would need to connect immediately, you launch a recording, you have the beep to tell you I'm live. Indeed, that there is probably some market there. So again, thanks for the feedback. We heard it also on the market, so we will think about it.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Yann.
Thank you so much, Ido.